What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Culture 316 podcast. I'm one of your hosts and producers, Jordan Nahisi.
Joined with Mo. What is up, people?
I'm going to take my glasses off because I don't like the way they look. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. As usual, if you're watching on if you're listening on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, be sure to like and rate the show. Give us a 5 stars. If you're watching and or listening on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, big shout out to everyone who joined us on our NXT deadline. I don't want to say the other one because I just realized. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us on our deadline space. It was so much fun. We had a lot of time watching NXT deadline this past week. And I believe that our next one will be at the beginning of the year. More news on that to come soon. There's been a lot going on, so we're not even going to waste a lot of time. And I think the first thing that we are going to talk about is NXT Deadline. So NXT Deadline emanated live from Bridgeport, Connecticut this past Saturday, my apologies. Emanated this past Saturday from Bridgeport, Connecticut. It featured 2 Iron Survivor Challenge matches and a main event that touted Ilya Dragunov versus Baron Corbin. It was a very eventful event, to say the least. But I wanted to know your impressions of everything that was going on. So, Mo, how did you feel about NXT Deadline?
I said this in the chat. I'm going to give this like 11,000 out of 10.
Of course.
Simply because the Iron Survivor, baby. Because the women's pissed me off. Okay? There's no reason why a black woman should get a donut inside of an Iron Survivor. Okay, I'm tired of it. It was funny, or we got along with it last year. I'm over the concept of whoever performs the best gets the donut. I don't like it. And They tried to do the same thing with Trick Williams. They had my man get his ass beat for like the first 20 minutes. I was not jacking it. I was not. But somehow he pulled something out of his ass. And he got 4 wins underneath his belt and took the W. Like, I can't, what? That comeback alone after all the shit my man has been through? Nah. That was a great pay-per-view. But on a more serious note, I loved everything else. I never got around to the first match. But I love the rest of the matches on the card. I don't even think the Women's Iron Survivor was bad. I think that the idea that someone's got a donut after busting their ass got me mad. But I think overall it was a good pay-per-view. It had a good pace. I think there's only one match that I consider being a piss break match. What the fuck was it? Remember what it was? I just swore. I was supposed to.
Was it the steel cage match was it Roxanne and Kiana James? I don't think that was a piss break match, but
no, it was a match before that with men where I was just like, yo, I'm gonna go eat. That's what I did.
Carmelo and what's his face? Alexis King?
Yeah, whatever the hell that was. It was something that was just so slow paced. I was like, all right, let me go get my dinner and we come back. Space was booming. It was so much fun. I actually did like Roxanne's match. It was fun. It was cool, but I feel like after coming off like the momentous high of both the Iron Survivor matches, it was just something to just ride you off. So I thought it was fun. It was a cool pay-per-view to close out the year. I think everyone had a really dope showcasing.
Mm-hmm.
I really got nothing else to complain about. What did you think about it, Jordan?
So I would say it's a 9 or a 10 out of 10. I think it was a great show from top to bottom. I think that they did a really good job at even making up for things that I guess the audience wasn't sure of how it was going to happen. For example, we were all expecting Wesley and Dominic Mysterio. We found out that Wes was injured. He's going to be out for 8 to 12 months. Speaking of which, we're wishing him a speedy recovery once again. But I think a lot of people were just like, oh, well, Wes is out. And I guess that just means that Dominic is going to keep the title. And no, Dragon won the North American title. And it was a really good little plot twist. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. Not to mention that they had a banger of a match. I feel like that was, and I don't want to like compare it or whatever the case may be, that match of Dragon Lee versus Dominic Mysterio felt like a 2023 Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio match. Like it felt very much that. Like if there was a prime,
very high bar.
It is, but it felt like that.
I feel like you for that.
That is all right. That's totally right. I'll take the heat. Obviously, I'm not saying that it was as good, but it felt like that was the vibe they were going for. Dominic being more of like a middleweight slash heavyweight guy, Dragon Lee being the high flyer. It felt like they were kind of going for that vibe, and I think that they did pretty well. So shout outs to them. That Trick Williams, I'm pretty sure that they tried to reference. There was an NBA game. Well, let me start out by saying this. I feel like the Trick Williams performance in the Iron Survivor Challenge was meant to replicate something that happened in a basketball game a long, long time ago. So, all right, I'll break it down for you. So, there was a basketball player by the name of Tracy McGrady who played on the Houston Rockets. And in 2007, I believe they had a game against the San Antonio Spurs. The team, Houston Rockets, had Tracy McGrady on it. At one point, they were down by like 10 plus points with like 30 seconds to go. Tracy McGrady ends up scoring 13 points in 33 seconds, and the Houston Rockets win the game. Wow. That's what Trick's performance felt like. It felt like that's what they were trying to replicate. That idea of like, oh, well, it's over. Trick ain't gonna get, and then he gets one pinfall, and it's like, wait a minute. Then he gets another pinfall, and it's just like, he hit two. Then he gets another pinfall. It's like three. He has three. Everybody else has three. And the next thing you know, he hits the four, and he gets four pinfalls with like 10 seconds to go. And I'm like, this is nuts. It felt like they referenced that. Also want to note, Trick Williams now, I don't know if it's the ad-libs that Booker be doing or just the way that Trick moves in the ring. Trick Williams reminds me of a young Booker T. He reminds me for him being a tall, muscular man to be as agile and as athletic as he is reminds me of Booker in WCW, which I think is one of the reasons why Booker has such an affinity towards him. So there's that. I was very, very impressed with that. I loved how, even though Tiffany Stratton did not win the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge, I feel like we are seeing a huge leap in her performance because in my opinion, I feel like Tiffany was one of the best performers in that match. And I feel like with that performance, I feel like she's main roster ready. I feel like she's been able to be in the ring with a lot of credible competitors, and her performance itself has taken a leap. And I would love to see her on the main roster, especially, obviously Charlotte messed up her knee. Praying for a speedy recovery for her because we don't like to see anybody injured. But if they're looking for someone to kind of fill in that spot, I think it would be great to see Tiffany Stratton on SmackDown kind of move into a spot on SmackDown and kind of build herself up. So there's that. But overall, I think NXT Deadline was a really, really good event. Obviously, the space was booming. So there's that. But yeah, I give it a 10 out of 10. But I want to know how everybody else feels about NXT Deadline. Let us know in the comments below. But we're moving on because Yeet is back. Yeet is back. It's back and it's better than ever for Christmas this year. The Yeet truck is here because it seems as if WWE has, I guess, settled financially with whomever owned the trademark because Jey Uso popped back up on WWE's Instagram stories with the Yeet merchandise, saying it on camera again, and it's back in full force. So how do you feel about WWE bringing back all the Yeet things?
Duh. That's my first reaction. Duh. Because what else were you going to do? And what else was that one wrestler whose name I can't remember, even though we just talked about it a week ago? What was he gonna do?
Right.
I'm just saying, like, it sticks, and millions of people are going with it, and they're going with it because of this company. Let them have the trademark. Just let them take it and remember that because it sticks, it's working, and I love it. Big W for WWE because, yeah, like, I love saying Yeet. I love watching Jay say Yeet. I would say Jay, god damn it. But, like, I love it. It's a great opportunity for merchandise. I hope that they get to catch up after that whole BS that happened last week with that one wrestler trying to reclaim that little trademark. Just let them have it, man. Just let them have it. Let Jay have this. I think it's cool. I think I love it. What do you think about it?
Listen, if we as a people ain't gonna get reparations, the least you could do is let Jay say Yeet. But no, on a serious note, I feel like it was due time. I feel like Yeet was so popular and so over that even if whomever owned the trademark was like, yeah, give me this amount of bread, I feel like WWE was willing to give them that money if that was the case. WWE was willing to give them the money
Kiss my ass.
because
Sorry.
but it was that was such an old black people insult and such like a timely way to just include it in the conversation. Like, but back to Jay. I feel like they were willing to just roll the dice and pay whomever whatever he needed because I feel like Jay is such a over babyface and whatever he's doing is so popular that it's just like, yeah, we're gonna collect all our coin while we can, and we're just gonna do what we can do. Like, I feel like Jay had a lot of momentum with Yeet. It's just like you keep that momentum going, and the fact that they were able to do this in this amount of time was impressive as well because it only was like a week. Like, I think we were talking about it on the show on a Thursday last time around, and we were like, Yeet is gone. And then by like Saturday, it was back. It was like, oh, Yeet is back. Okay, this is
Very
great.
nice.
So I'm just really, really happy that they were able to kind of capitalize on that. But yeah, I'm just really, really happy for Jay. But let us know how y'all feel in the comments below about Jay Uso bringing Yeet back, or WWE bringing Yeet back by way of Jay Uso. Let's put that in the comments below. But we're moving on because obviously one of the biggest topics that has been of discussion this past week is the promo by Seth Rollins versus CM Punk on Raw. It's a 15-minute segment. Apparently there was no producer, allegedly there was no producer listed for the segment, which means it was really just Seth and Punk. And Seth had a lot to say. But I'm not gonna get into what he was saying. I would recommend people to just look it up and watch for yourself and see what he said. But I wanted to get your opinions on this promo and opinions on this dynamic and what we got going on.
Oh, I liked it. You know what? I was like looking at everything when I rewatched the video on YouTube, and like Punk came out and he didn't like look like he was excited to be there. And for a moment, I'm like, like, like why is he walking in there like that? Like he don't know what he's getting himself into. Like he don't know if it's a setup. I don't know. He was just fist bumping and high fiving the fans, and it just looked like he was a little bit dead and focused on like what he's about to anticipate. And I felt like that first promo he had was a little bit scripted, and it wasn't scripted till after he responded back to Seth's. So that being said, when I was listening to Seth, it almost felt like Seth was like spewing every intrusive thought that at least a person like me would have towards Seth. And I was like, ooh, like he's getting his ass, like reminding him, like, yo, don't you ever call this your home. When I've been carrying this company on my back, along with Roman, along with Drew, along like whatever, so on and so forth, don't you dare call this company your home on my watch, knowing damn well I could pull up tapes and promos from like less than 6 months ago of you dragging this company. Every single week. They used to give, on AEW, they used to give this man like 30 minutes. Like 30 minutes of screen time to just go up there and just talk shit. Like slandering this company back and forth, name dropping back and forth, references back and forth. I really felt like Seth meant that. And if he didn't mean that, then his acting is impeccable. Because what? Every time he says something, I was like, yo, I felt that too. I felt that too. No, like, and I understand where he's coming from, because one thing about Seth, and we said it on the show before, Seth is like a company guy. Like he goes on, he does what he has to do. You don't hear any articles about him complaining with the bag. He takes whatever embarrassing storyline he has to do and just does it. He gets the job done. He's very reliable. So I could understand what it feels like for him, but not only him, but people in the back that are clawing for like some screen time on Raw, and they're hoping, oh, maybe I'm next with Seth, maybe I'm next with Roman, maybe I'm next with this person, and it's just like this motherfucker was just on screen talking shit like 6 months ago, and now he's here, and he's acting like, oh, this is my home, this is my home, and it's like, god dang it, I'm not gonna get any screen time at this point. So I feel like Seth was speaking not only for him, for the company, but even like the smaller people in the back when he was dragging Punk. But I love it. I love it because like this is a type of feud where both parties win in WWE. If you don't like Punk, and I'm like here or there with Punk, I'm happy that he's here because that's money, that's business, it's gonna create amazing feuds and stuff like that. But it's just that when it comes to Punk, I think he's a sleazeball. You know, I think he's a bunch of things underneath the sun. So a person like me gonna side with Seth and resonate with everything that he has to say. But if you're like a true Punk fan and you couldn't wait for him to come back, then you get to win with Punk going over. If he does, we don't know. One could go over, one could go over, or they could just end it in a draw and drag this thing out because you know this company loves doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought the promo was fantastic. It felt realistic, and I can't quite like remember the time when I watched a promo in like the last couple years. I don't know on WWE screen television when's the last time I watched a promo and I'm like, did he really mean that, bro? Because like the tension is there. It is there. And the idea that I don't know if it's real or not makes me even more excited and invested as a fan. You know? So if there was no producer, great job. Great job, gentlemen. Because that came out perfect. And the length of it, perfect. I love this feud. And I kind of wish this was something that could drag out to Mania. But we in December right now. I don't know if WWE knows how to book that and keep my attention span. But what do you think about it, Jordan?
I have so many points to make and so
Yeah,
little time. So I'm
go
going to
for it.
start with this. Number one, this is what separates WWE from AEW. Because when I'm looking at this promo, I was like, this could have been Punk versus Omega. This could have
Hmm.
been Punk and FTR versus the Elite. This could have been another Punk versus Hangman. But nah, Cats was so in they bag and in they feelings that they didn't want to make money. So what happens? If Punk isn't liked in WWE, we're not going to put you in a position where it's like, you know what? Yeah, you're not going to work with this person. We're not going to work with this person. No, we're going to agree. We're going to have respect for each other, right? But at the same time, we're going to understand that there's money to be made here. So here's the line. Don't cross that line, but say what you got to say, put what you got to put out. Because at the end of the day, it's not about my feelings. It's not about your feelings. It's about the fans. It's about what they want to see, and it's about making money. And that's the difference between WWE and AEW, because the moment that Punk got on the wrong person's side, he's suspended and he's fired, and it's great for vibes, but you just missed out on the bag. And speaking of bags, I'm going to get back to that at the end of this
All
rant.
Friends
Number
Wrestling.
number 2. Number 2, Seth Rollins is the best wrestler in the world. And this is something that I've said for a very long time. It sucks that it took this for people to see that. He's been on a different level on the mic for a long time. He's been on a different level in the ring for a long time. And a lot of that time, so many people were focused on Punk that Seth probably felt slept on and ignored. And so we see a lot of that fire coming out now. And number 3, the one thing that I was paying attention to, like you were, was Punk's body language. And Punk's body language, Punk and how he was reacting to Seth. And I think he was doing this for a couple reasons. Number one, Punk was showing, all right, I could behave. All this stuff about me popping off on people and woo, 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 woo. I'm going to show him a different side, right? Because all this happened out in the ring. We didn't hear Punk, any backstage reports about Punk making comments about the promo. It's business as usual. All right, he said what he said.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I saw that was very interesting, Seth did his promo, da-da-da-da-da, and then Punk said, are you done? Are you done? And what that told me was, you better hope I act up between now and Mania. Because if I circle back to you, I'm violating you. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I'm gonna make peace backstage. I'm gonna go to NXT and deal with the kids. I'm not gonna say anything bad. I'm not gonna call people children.
Yeah, that's what
But you
he
better
did.
not hope that I'm here when it comes by March or April. You better hope I punch somebody backstage. Because if I'm here in March, if they want me to be a WrestleMania main event, I want you to have your bases covered, because I'm gonna violate you. That's the vibe that I got from Punk.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I got from Punk. And that's the reason why I was like, I saw Seth and I saw what he said, and I was like, you're right, and this resonates. But I need you to be careful, bro, because this is not you and Cody. This is you and Punk. This is the same person that went to AEW and went at MJF for 20 minutes and won. Relax. Relax. but I do want to also say that like a lot of the stuff that Seth was talking about with Punk, it was very, very similar with what he did with Cody. I mean, when they after that Mania match and they were building towards like, or kind of like building their feud, it was like, listen, you left this place 6 years ago because you weren't cutting it, and then you tried to go over there and you wasn't cutting it over there, so you came back over here. There was a lot of stuff that he said during that promo that once again that resonated. But I feel like Seth knows when it's money time. He knows when it's time to when it's time to make magic and when it's time to make money. And I think that that's the thing that's going to separate him from everybody else in his class. But I know that they're going to tie this in. Because we're saying I don't know what they're going to do between now and Mania, and Mania's in April, bro. The Royal Rumble is next month. This is not that far away. It's not that far away. And I feel like Punk is also just like using this time to make his rounds. Like, oh, I mean, I could tell you, I mean, like I could ask you while we're kind of in this context, like we saw CM Punk go down to NXT and train with the kids down there and train with Cora Jade and Roxanne. And even with when he was backstage at NXT Deadline, backstage at NXT Deadline, he came next to Cora Jade when she was in the middle of an interview, and she was just like, I just want to let you know that I'm proud of you. But I just want to let you know that like I'm proud of your growth. This is your house now. You're on another level. Just want to let you know like you're doing great. And April sends her regards. And you could just see Cora turn into a little kid. And then next thing you know, he shows up to NXT, like the Performance Center, and he's coaching them. I want to know how you feel about all this. Like CM Punk making these surprises, doing his rounds. Do you think it's a show? Do you think it's a farce? Like, what do you think is up?
I mean, I feel like WWE is working really, really hard to make CM Punk look like he can be a good guy and that he's kind of like reborn.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's sprinkled into the promo.
Mm-hmm.
Did they not like comment on like maybe you have changed?
Yeah, Seth did say that. Yeah,
I don't think that was. I think that was sprinkled in on purpose. And I think WWE is working really hard to undo the image that was presented in AEW. Because how else is like merch going to move, and how else are we excited for these sales if you guys still hate him? I could feel the way I feel about Mr. Phillip, but he's still influential. These people in NXT grew up watching this man. That's why people like Cora Jade and Roxanne were so happy in that picture to be next to him, because it's just like, like, dude, I grew up with you. The people in NXT are younger than me. Like, I'm 26, guys. Like, people in NXT are anywhere from like from 18 to maybe just shy of my age, if that. So I feel like it's smart because they might even like bring him down just because at some point in his career to NXT, and that'd be a great ratings booster. You know what I mean? Because everyone there is probably going to be more forthcoming with him, and I feel like the main roster just doesn't want to deal with Punk. And WWE's not stupid. Like, this is a company that's been around for many, many years. It's not like AEW. They're not going to stick people around other people that just don't like each other and tell them to work with each other. It's not going to work that way. And then like with Punk, he's going to be very reactive. So it's like, all right, let's just appease him. Let's bring him down to NXT. Let's just go on. Let's just go on a spree with taking all these pictures with everyone that likes him, and let's just demonstrate that, hey, like, people can get along with him. He probably does have a likable side for all I know. I don't know, Philip. I don't. But he probably does. But I think that it works if they're trying to build him in a babyface light, which from what I'm getting on screen, even though it's not completely clear, feels like they are. It feels like they're trying to bring a babyface CM Punk so that if and when they book this man for WrestleMania And I would love to know if he's going to be night 1 or night 2. I don't know yet. But whenever they bring him, and if he wins on either night, it's going to be like a big celebration, like a big cash in, because I feel like there has to be an agreement between him and WWE that, hey, I don't want to have any strings pulled on me if I'm going to sign this contract. You guys have to stand on a few of your words, and I stand on mine. 'Cause last time I checked, I was doing great. I made your company look great, and then you mother effers fired me on my wedding day. So what we doing here? I can see that, but what do you think?
So I think that this is genuine. Here's why. WWE, Punk was already bringing in 6 figures on merch before he made the decision to go to NXT.
Yeah.
He was already profitable before he decided to go to Deadline. Like, he was already the number 1 and the number 4 merchandise seller on WWEshop.com.
Yeah.
To be honest, it could be it could be a thing where it could have been a thing where like WWE brought him in, just wanted to get some money, and then that's it. I don't think that WWE gets anything from Punk looking like a great guy, because
Really?
they already have a bunch of people who can be great guys. All Punk has to do is just be there in order to be a draw. Because he was going through controversy in AEW, he was still a draw. But here's what I will say, and this is something that I brought up in the group chat. You know, when you're in a relationship with somebody and you're telling them, hey, you could be better if you did this, you could be better if you did that. And throughout the entire course of the relationship, they don't do those things. And then a year later, however later, they end up doing those things in a completely different relationship. Why? Because they want to be there. AEW was, like you said, AEW was Punk's rebound, baby. And you know where you always gonna act right? Where you want to be. You know where you're gonna want to behave? Where you want to be. I don't have to be told to act nice or be genuine when I'm with the girl that I actually want to be with.
Tony never getting that ass back.
Never.
Nope.
Never. All he had to do with AEW was prove that he can sell merch and be a draw, because that's what WWE cares about. And now that he proved it, he's back in the door. And so I feel like he's always wanted to be the guy that gave advice. He's always wanted to be the guy that the younger guys and girls look up to. But I also feel like, once again, it's different. It may be different how the main roster sees CM Punk versus how NXT sees CM Punk. Because all the people on the main roster are people that were young and upcoming when he was doing his 2011 run, 2013 run. And some of them may have experienced him. Some of them may have peers in the other company. And then everybody in NXT, they were probably inspired by Punk to want to get into pro wrestling in the first place. When you look at a Roxanne, when you look at a Cora Jade.
Yeah, I can see it.
And so the relationship and the dynamic is different. But I just feel like everybody's saying, "Oh, Punk is pretending." No, I don't think that Punk is. I think that Punk is genuine, because Punk doesn't get anything from going to NXT, but Punk gets the fulfillment because he wants to be there. This has been Plan A, to be in a position to be the WrestleMania main event, to be the person that people look up to be the person who gets the ice cream bars and is on the poster. This is what he wanted 10 years ago. And he positioned himself to get it 10 years later. And now he's in that position and he's happy. So that's how I feel about the Punk thing. But y'all can let us know how y'all feel about the Punk thing. Personally, I'm a CM Punk fan, but we'll see how all this plays out. But we're going to be moving on. So, not in response, but AEW has been doing some pretty impressive things with the Continental Classic, which is a tournament to crown what they are deeming as the North American Triple Crown Champion, which means that the winner of this tournament is going to attain the New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Openweight Championship, the Ring of Honor World Championship, and AEW's new Continental Championship. And you're already seeing guys that are at the top of it's kind of, the tournament is very similar to the G1. Whitney calls it the AEW G1. But people that are at the top of this tournament are guys like John Moxley, Swerve, amongst others. So I wanted to kind of get your impression on this tournament, and do you think that this is creating compelling TV for All Elite Wrestling?
Well, dude, I have not been paying attention to AEW. No, I'm being honest. I've been paying attention to more
Right.
like WWE. I'm not gonna lie to the audience or nothing, but so they get to win 3 titles by the end of this whole thing.
Yes. And the tournament culminates at AEW World's End, December 30th, at the Nassau Coliseum.
Ooh. Oh yeah, I didn't know that. Why did I act like I didn't know that? Um No, I think that's pretty cool. And it's funny how I was just dragging AEW not too long ago about how they treat ROH, and it's about time that
Mm.
the ROH belt gets more presentation on TV. So if they do achieve all 3 belts, do they finally bring those matches and those feuds that happens for ROH onto the screen? Do we get to see the belt more? What happens with that?
I would assume, considering that whomever is winning the championship is going to take all 3 titles, I feel like the champion would be on all 3 promotions, respectively, right? Because the strong title is New Japan's World Heavyweight title. The ROH World title is their World Heavyweight title, and then the Continental Championship. We don't know what that necessarily means in the context of AEW championships yet, because there hasn't been a champion crown yet. We don't know what that looks like, but I would assume that they will be on all 3 promotions, and because of that, the titles would also be seen on screen for AEW.
That's pretty cool, but I don't know how I am going to be excited for it, because how do you book around having 3 titles? Does the next person
Mm,
that beat that individual that wins this whole tournament, when they have a title match, is it a title match for all 3 titles? Is this a tournament that only happens one time once a year, and that person has these belts until the next tournament that's supposed to be next year? Did they ever announce what's supposed to be the structure? You're asking someone, by the way, who doesn't really watch G1s. I probably watched one whole G1 the entire time of my
right.
life.
I mean, they haven't really announced if they're going to do this in the future, if this is going to be a recurring thing, like how they announced for like the Owen Hart Cup, right? But they just mentioned that it's going to be the North American Triple Crown champion, similar, and it's kind of influenced by like what was happening in Japan for like All Japan Pro Wrestling, I think it is, when like 3 titles were up for grabs at the end of a tournament. I don't know if this will always, if all titles will be defended for this, you know what I mean? If all titles would be defended at once every time the titles are on the line, or if it's just like 3 separate title matches. But I mean, I feel like it would probably be one of those like all titles are on the line if there's a title match type of situation, just because ain't nobody trying to be in 3 championship matches every month or every week or whatever the case may be. But you know, I think that that's kind of like the general idea or the general sense of it as far as like
I'm
the
just
AEW.
asking because they got all these belts. They got only 2 hours here, 2 hours on Saturday. How do you work this in to be meaningful? 'Cause I feel like if you're gonna come out of a tournament, yes, it's supposed to build someone out, build someone up, and put them over. But like it's the after the tournament that's a little bit
Mm,
more important for me. What do you do with
mhm,
that? Kind of like with like King of the Ring, for example. What does
right.
the person do with that King of the Ring gimmick that's going to elevate them and be
Mm,
like an interesting storyline for me to engage with as a fan? Because you don't want none of those 3 belts to just not mean anything.
very true.
So that's just my only question. I have no doubt they're gonna have amazing matches, and it's gonna be a cool moment when you get all 3 belts. Because who doesn't like the visual of someone getting 3 belts? You know, I love that shit when I saw it on Kota Ibushi. But
Mm,
my thing is that, like, what do they do afterwards to work it into their TV time? And I hope that they planned ahead of time for that,
right.
because I don't want anyone walk around with 3 belts and it just looks stupid. But do you have any opinions on the tournament, and you have a particular winner just looking at the match card?
So I love the tournament. Tony always does his big one with a tournament.
Right.
That's one thing I'm gonna say. I don't know. I don't know like what's in the water, but I just know that every time Tony says we're gonna do a tournament, he does his big one. So that's
Hmm.
number one. Number two, my odds on favorite is Swerve Strickland. He's my favorite.
Mm.
He currently is like second place in the Gold League, I believe it is. But it's like he's clearly the most over person in the company right now. I feel like the tournament itself, it's great because we're getting matchups that we probably wouldn't see elsewhere. I also feel like it's doing a really good job at making certain other people feel important. For example, we had a Bryan Danielson versus Andrade match when Andrade won. And that would not have happened, I think, in any other way. And at the same time, Bryan Danielson did not look weak by losing that match. And he didn't look less dominant because he still has a certain amount of points.
Mm.
Um, Swerve versus Jay White was another prime example. Swerve versus John Moxley was another great example because they were tied for points at one point, and then John Moxley kind of took the lead, right? But
Yeah.
Swerve didn't look weak losing that match because of how John Moxley won. So I feel like this tournament is doing a really good job at giving I guess, the underutilized talent more of a spotlight and giving them credible wins over big names so that when it's time for them to go for a main event push, they have the credibility to do so.
Yeah.
Um, as far as, yeah, so the winner I think is going to be Swerve. I agree with you though, because I'm curious to see how all the championships are going to kind of like work itself out or rank itself. I have an idea. My idea is that the AEW Continental Championship is exclusive to Collision.
Ooh.
I feel like I feel like ever since Punk left AEW, there's been a value void in Collision. And I feel like you get that momentarily a little bit when Adam Copeland shows up. But I feel like you would be able to add a lot more credibility to the show if you had a title that was exclusive to the show. And considering that you have wrestlers in this who were prior world champions in all different promotions, whether that be AEW, Ring of Honor, WWE, it seems as if you're giving this world championship importance. Now, you already have the AEW International Championship, you already have the TNT Championship, and the AEW World Championship, and you have not classified either of those championships as mid card titles, which is fine. But if you have a Continental Championship, now it's like, now it can be too much for one show. So I feel like if you want this to have a spotlight, make the title exclusive to Collision because I feel like that's a great way for it to attain value. I feel like that's a great way for the title to have its own spotlight is if you were to just Collision um give Collision the Continental Championship. But I want to know how y'all feel about the AEW Continental Classic and your impressions. Put in the comments below and let us know. But we're moving on. So we know that Endeavor, which is a entertainment art media holdings company, they were responsible for the merger of WWE and UFC to be TKO, but they have done another wrestling related interesting move, which is that they've teamed up with Impact Wrestling to create an Impact Wrestling streaming service, TNA Plus. Now, we've been talking about TNA, me, Banks and I, Mo and I sometimes have talked about Impact Wrestling. She doesn't watch it, even though she likes Trinity, which I don't understand. Because how do you support Trinity if you don't even watch her matches on Impact Wrestling? That's another story for another time. But
Don't be calling me out.
I'm you see the hand. You see it.
Put the hand down.
No, this is
Put
accountability.
the hand down.
This is accountability.
Women don't like accountability. Don't. It feels like it's like spray to a cat.
Right. It's like yeah. But accountability. But the thing about it is that TNA has been set abuzz, right? We learned within the past couple months that Impact Wrestling will be going back to its roots as TNA Wrestling. They are rebranding, if you will, and their first event will be taking place in Vegas in January. We see that Okada is going to have a match in TNA. So there's a lot of excitement around the rebrand. They also kind of announced a couple of re-signings and signings today. Eddie Edwards is re-signing with TNA. So there's a lot of buzz surrounding TNA. Bringing Impact Wrestling into the Endeavor fold in some way, shape, or form, I think is huge because TNA, Impact Wrestling previously had a business relationship with obviously being on Access TV. They had a business relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Before that, they had a business relationship with AEW. And Will Ospreay, who is now officially an AEW talent, has a match on TNA coming in 2024. So in layman's terms, this is a very, very interesting move. But I want to know what your opinions are on this. How do you feel like this move of TNA / Impact teaming up with Endeavor is going to change things? Do you think that we're going to see some TNA WWE crossovers at any point in time?
Yeah, and that'd be pretty cool. Actually, what a way to like try to win back some wrestlers that we lost from WWE if you like actually pull that. Again, I don't watch TNA like Jordan called me out on rudely. Um, Whatever. But they have a shit ton of talent to work with. And I feel like when it comes to WWE, they know they have a formula that already works, but they're open to trying other business ventures, and I don't put it past them to see how crossovers work really well in AEW and how they were able to make great cash in pay-per-views off of, crossing over a little bit with Japan. So I could see them doing a little bit more with Impact and just like here and there thing. And again, it's a big power move for Impact because I just remember
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years ago, people were just making fun of Impact, you know, talking about it as if like it's a place that you go to when you screwed up your career and you need to like revamp yourself again. It's like preliminary, and then you get to go back and see if you're accepted by the bigger companies. So I
Right.
think it's a pretty wise move. Um, Again, the roster, like I said, is hot to work with. Um, I I'm interested. I'm interested. Maybe then I'll actually watch, and I'll watch for Trinity. Jordan.
Finally.
But what?
Finally. This is this is juicy. That's what I'll say. And the reason why I was on my phone was because I was trying to pull up um some names to see what their roster is because I wanted to give context. I know who's a part of Impact Wrestling / TNA. But some other people may not. So I'm gonna just rattle off a few names for you guys. So
It's
we
not
have
like Deanna
Ace.
Peralta.
We have a Deanna Perrazzo, Ace Austin, Chris Bay. We have Tommy Dreamer, Chris Sabin,
He wrestles.
Trinity. We have Alex Shelley. They have Dirty Dango. They have Josh Alexander, Khan, Laredo Kid. They have
Where's
Mike
Crimson
Bailey.
Clit?
Jordan Grace is another one. The Rascals, they have Rhino, they have Rich Swan, they have Savannah Evans. They also just signed Trent Seven. They also have Steve Macklin. They also have Trey Miguel. Trey Miguel technically is a part of the Rascals. They have the Good Hands, Tasha Steeles, Subculture, who was previously a part of NXT UK. Sheldon Jean, Savannah Evans, Santino Morella. They have a bunch of talent. And they've been obviously one of those companies that kind of comes out with a chip on their shoulder in the sense of like we may not have all the stars, but we're still a great wrestling company. We have a great wrestling product, and therefore we're gonna put it all out on the line every time we have a show, whether that's TV, whether that's pay-per-view. As far as how I see this is gonna shape up, this is gonna be very, very interesting because like I said, Impact is one of those companies that has positioned itself to be cool with everybody, right? There was a point in time where they did not have the reputation or the credibility to kind of be where they are now, and they have it now. They've worked with New Japan Pro Wrestling, they've worked with AEW. Now they're in the same space as WWE. But I also feel like this is a testament to how valuable TNA's video library is. Everybody talks about TNA and Impact and what they've done in the past. But like you think about it, a lot of the GOATs, a lot of the greats have done a little stint in TNA / Impact. Sting, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian. Did I mention Sting? Christian Cage was another one. Um, Jeff Jarrett was another one. Even some of the best tag teams in the world, right? Like we can go off of Beer Money. We could talk about the Dudleys. We could talk about America's Most Wanted. We could talk about Triple X. Like they have had so many great talents, and they've had so many great a history of having a great wrestling product that I feel like Endeavor was able to see how valuable their library was and be like, we want a part of this. And it puts them in the same space as WWE. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw AJ Styles make a little TNA appearance. I mean, AJ, when we talk about the house that AJ built, AJ Styles is TNA. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get those crossovers. But now I'm curious to see how Tony Khan is going to pivot and react. Because now that you have a company that you have a business relationship with be in the same space as WWE, does it change your approach? Would you allow some of your talent to be at TNA shows? I don't know. But it is something to consider. But I think it's going to be really, really interesting. And it's only going to be good for wrestling. But that's about it for TNA Plus and the streaming service. I want to know how you guys feel about it. Let us know in the comments below. But we are going to move on. Yeah. Because this past week, we saw the premiere of The Iron Claw, a A24 film about the legendary Von Erich family. It's coming out on December 22nd. And they had their red carpet premiere, and the stars were out. Obviously, the AEW World Heavyweight Champion, who was also in the film, MJF, was there. But also, we got names like John Cena. We got Liv Morgan. You had Lana there, as well as other wrestlers. Even the Von Erichs made an appearance on this past episode of Dynamite. So I wanted to get your number one, are you going to go see this movie? Number two, how do you feel about seeing WWE guys, AEW guys, kind of in the same space?
Number one, I would like to see the movie. MJF has demonstrated to be really fun, really charismatic, but very good at acting. He's no stranger to the camera. I mean, the kid's been on camera since he was a kid, quite literally.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I could trust his acting skills to be good and to be something where I feel like I'll be able to watch MJF and not like see the wrestler, but like just him in whatever acting role he's in. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to watch it for that, but also the Von Erichs. That's a very interesting topic to touch upon. I didn't learn much about the Von Erichs until I watched that special on Dark Side of the Ring, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. So I'd be totally down to see them on the big screen. I feel like every wrestling fan should. If you're a true wrestling fan, like why not? What? Like
Absolutely.
this is our crack. This is our bread and butter. We love hashing out old school shit.
Right.
But thirdly, to answer your question about seeing them together, I didn't really feel any different about it. I just thought it was cool. Maybe a little bit surprising, not so much on AEW's end, but for WWE to allow the pictures, because I don't have an issue with them being in the same space. I expect that these people hit each other up, that they know each other already, that they hang out. But it was just very interesting and bold to see um, WWE talent like just loud and boldly taking pictures, especially with John Cena too in there,
Mm-hmm.
with AEW talent, because this is supposed to be the company that we're quote in competition with. So does that mean that we're not actually in competition with them, or we're just doing good business? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It I mean, what else were you going to do? I mean, the Von Erichs came from WWE, and of course one person's in the Von Erich film. So it's interesting. And I'm pretty sure that everyone who got handpicked to be at the premiere is probably very honored. They looked happy as hell in the photos. So good on them. Good for John. Well, who's John Cena? It was Liv
John Cena,
Morgan and
Liv Morgan. I gotta find out who else
but
went.
it's cool. It must have been cool to like A, be there for such a big film that's probably going to do a lot in the box office. And I feel like it's just pretty awesome to just have the opportunity to just again be present with the opposing company and to be like to get the okay to post those pictures, and no one's gonna chew you out for it. Like, oh, you gotta crop out this man. Like, what are you doing? Like, no, they just posted it. They had fun. Good for them. But what do you think about the movie and everyone being presented together?
Fun fact: Ryan Nemeth was also there. Chavo Guerrero was also there. He
Oh,
is the
Chavo.
movie's wrestling consultant. So Lana was there. Bruce Buffer, who is the UFC ring announcer, was there. Liv Morgan was there, and that's all that I'm seeing as far as wrestling related talent or combat sports related talent that was at that premiere. Um, this kind of brings me back to something that MJF said. Like MJF was talking about this and saying, like, listen, guys, like I know y'all are all WWE or AEW, but like all the wrestlers are cool. Like we're all cool. Like we all talk to each other, and we want there to be competition. Not competition, but like we want there to be multiple wrestling companies because when there's competition, we're all better. Like competition means he's making money and I'm making money. We're both making money. We're all making more money, so we're all cool. So I don't think that this says a lot about the wrestlers because I feel like we kind of all share a sense that like the majority of wrestlers from both sides kind of get along.
Right.
Um, However, what I do think that this says a lot about how far WWE has come. Tony Khan has always been a very, very inclusive leader. He's always been one of those like, yeah, you want to do an indie date? Yeah, you want to go take a picture with this person? Yeah, go ahead and do it. Like, I'm not mad. I'm not tripping over it. Tony Khan has always been that guy. WWE has not always been that inclusive. I feel like Vince was very closed off, very exclusive, but I feel like this is kind of a testament to where WWE is heading. They want to be more inclusive.
WWE treats AEW like that one guy in your Facebook Messenger DMs that just keeps telling you good morning, good morning, good morning every single
That's a
day.
fact. That's a fact.
And you
That's a
finally
fact.
give him a chance.
And you finally give him a chance. It's like, oh, this isn't that bad. Oh, okay, all right, cool. No, I just feel like WWE is starting to become more inclusive, if not for anything else, for the sake of good business and good optics. Because it's like in a social media age and in an age where like wrestling is just like wrestling, it's one of those things where it's like if you're not taking pictures with certain cats, it's like you're just weird. Like that's not like you're not trying to prove anything. It's like that's a wrestler, that's a wrestler. Clearly they know each other. Why don't we see them hanging out? So I just feel like we're in a space where it's cool to be inclusive, and I think that WWE is moving towards an inclusive atmosphere. And I feel like this is a great place to be inclusive. Is at a movie premiere like like the Iron Claw, because this is a wrestling movie, and this is in turn going to generate some buzz around the business. Also, shout out to Zac Efron because he got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame today. And he
Really?
also
Wow.
said a lot of good
That's
things
good.
about wrestling. He just said, how intense it is, how brutal of a sport it is, and how these guys are artists and this, that, and the third. So I
He's a
will definitely see
fan.
it. Y'all should see it. Also, A24, I want merch. Send me merch for Iron Claw. Send us merch for Iron Claw. All
Yes.
right. We want the sponsor coin. But let us know how you guys feel about the Iron Claw in the comments below. We're going to go see it. But that concludes our show. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Culture 316 podcast. And we'll see you guys next week.
Nice.